Peter Martin Audio Division presents Conversation Stimulation.
Are we live? Are we live? We live. Double speak audience. Well, go on. I was actually about to be coming in here on some happy-go-lucky stuff. And I just got into an argument before coming live about something. That's not really an argument. You know what I need to get better at doing? And ladies, don't take this the wrong way. Any women that's listening, but I need to get better at talking to, especially with women, without thinking that the conversation with the goal of educating has to be an argument. But it's because of the way you come across. So any woman listening, not understanding why that happens, especially when you engage with men on topics, especially when you're in a classroom as well. These kind of embarrassing dynamics where the female student is challenging the professor on a subject that is like the person, like she's gravely misinformed or just wrong. And she's going back and forward with him or even her, whoever the professor is, about it. And it's like, please, man, like this is embarrassing at this point. Like, because you're arguing, you're not asking questions, you're kind of insinuating that you know better. But I've learned, I don't say I've learned because I'm still going through it, but it's a bit like I'm starting to learn that no, that's the way of discourse sometimes with women, is that it can sound confrontational, but they're trying to communicate and that's the only way they can do it, I guess. Not everyone, obviously, but a lot of the time, that's kind of what it is. And it's exhausting at times, man. Because it's like, you don't even know what you're talking about. And I'm going to get onto the topic, actually, because it sounds very vague of what I'm speaking about. But let me be kind of vague, because it's still the point. I don't have to be too specific. When it comes to police shootings of people, there is always a backstory to it, okay? Now, you're not privy to the backstory. You're not privy to the backstory all the time, but it doesn't mean there's not a backstory there. You should seek to want to know what the backstory is rather than getting triggered by your emotions and paint everything with the same brush. Meaning that if something is openly racist, it doesn't mean that every scenario that is similar to that means the same thing. Now, two things can be true that seem to be opposite. These things are not binary. So it means that is there racist police officers that kill with the intent behind being racism? Yes. Does it mean that every police officer that does that's the case? No. Now, with understanding that, when you look at scenarios, you should really look at the facts first. If you have a limited amount of facts, then maybe you shouldn't have much of an opinion, because you're going to only look stupid because you're using your imagination to paint the missing holes in the story rather than waiting and seeking to find out more information. Yes, there is a dynamic of sometimes the information that's given is strategic, and also it might not be the whole truth. I would say, therefore, use the logos and say, well, I can't have much of an opinion. I'll tell you why. With some scenarios, yeah, like a scenario that happened not too long ago, last year sometime, and times before that, the person that was killed by a police officer was in the roads. Now, if you've never been in the roads, you wouldn't understand the dynamic of cops and robbers. Simple as that. Does it matter if the person is innocent in the moment or not? I'm so sorry, but every other criminal understands no, because that is the game. The game is cat and mouse. That's why the only time a criminal should get upset is if the police officers are cutting corners on solving crimes. And when I say cutting corners, I mean they're manufacturing evidence to get you because they can't actually get you, okay? Or get the person. I'm sorry, like if someone's in the roads and they get shot by police, whether they deserved it or not, you're playing by the game. If you're sick with the gunplay and you get killed and shot, guess what? Bullets don't only fire in one direction. Do you get what I'm saying? You're not Harry Styles, okay? That was a crap joke. But being in defense of black people is not the same as defending criminals. Like, it's not the same thing. And we kind of conflate the two and we can't really like figure out the difference. It's not because someone has a criminal background doesn't mean they should be murdered. No, but if you're in that world, that is a possibility. Let's get into the episode. You are now plugged in with me and plugged out of the Matrix. You are all welcome to the Double Speak podcast. I am your host, writer, director, producer, and all that ego-towing crap, PJ Mundy, aka the council baby, aka the big non-stepper, aka the silver-tongued silverback, and that's a fact. We are here, not there. So yeah, I was in such a good mood coming into this episode because there was so much things I wanted to talk about and touch on. Pause. And that wasn't even really a pause, it just sounded a bit mad. Let's get right into what the mantra is today. The mantra, personal edict, whatever you want to call it. Today, this morning when I woke up and read it, I was not in the mood to get into that mindset, but we're here anyway. Okay. So, we praise God. Right, so the mantra of today is victory despite of all terror. Without victory, there is no survival. From Sir Winston Churchill. I read it again. Victory despite all terror. Without victory, there is no survival. He was talking about that obviously at the time of Britain's darkest hour against the Nazis. And it all worked out. And that is kind of the angle I'm coming from today. Today is about letting it all work out. And it doesn't necessarily mean just, I don't know, just in relationships or just in business or whatever you're pursuing in life. It could be a bill that you can't pay. It could be anything. You're not in control. Things that you're not in control of, you have to allow it to just play out the way it's going to play out, regardless of, because sometimes you can do too much in your attempt to chase something or do it off your own strength or off your own back. You can actually hinder what God had planned for you. Sometimes I tend to stop and check in with my creator, and how I do that is by stopping and going into that piece of my mind that I go to when I meditate. We're going to get into that a bit later, meditations and the importance of it, blah 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 blah. But yeah, it's really important to kind of say, should I act on this, or should I? Sometimes even in a dispute, someone's having an argument and you think, should I say this? And you think, nah, it's not the time or place to correct them on that or to say how I feel about this or whatever. Sometimes you should use discernment, as my mum would say. Use discernment. But in relationships, people don't understand there is a big difference. I say people, I mean young people. There is a big difference between living with your boyfriend or girlfriend and living at your mom's or your parents, or living separately, period. And that you're actually bedrooms. You're not like in a serious relationship. I don't care what anyone says. If you don't live together, or until you live together, you're not in a serious relationship. Even in your imagination, you think it's serious, you're not. And anyone that's lived with their partner is laughing right now, listening. You're laughing because you know that you didn't understand that until it happened. When you live with someone, it is a whole different kettle of fish. Even as friends, like I've lived with friends before, and it changes the dynamic forever. And sometimes what you would hope is that it changes it for the better, but 9 times out of 10 it doesn't. And funny enough, going into it, my mum told me that would happen, but sometimes you have to see something for yourself, even though someone tells you, innit? And this is an example of that. So if you're in a boyfriend-girlfriend thing and you don't live together, it's a joke thing. When you move, and the thing is, you don't realize that you don't feel like that, but when you move in together, you're going to be like, when bills are coming in both of your names, okay, when you can't go nowhere to get rid of the person's there. The person's there when you want them to be there. The person's there when you don't want them to be there. The person's there when you kind of want to be alone. The person's there when you want to enjoy your own company. The person's there when you actually want to kick it with your bedrooms. The person's there when you actually want to just chill from work or whatever. They're always there. And they always want to know what you're doing. You are also held accountable by that person. Even in times where you want to be just distressed, they might have plans. You might have agreed to plans with them. Where when you're not living together, you can kind of just not respond and like get back to them the next day and say, oh, sorry, I fell asleep. No. What you're doing now is hiding in the bathroom because they're in the living room waiting for you, okay? They're in the bedroom getting ready. Like, this is the thing. It's way different. It's way different when you have to put money into an account together and you, to take money out, you both have to sign off on it. It's a way different situation. It's a way different situation when you're going around to her, she's cooking for you, and it's all like you're playing house. That's what you're doing. You're pretending. It's all a big pretense. You're playing house. When you're living together, there's nights where she wants you to cook, my guy. See what I mean? Nights of the week where you have to commit, my guy, to doing that. You have to juggle the chores between each other. It gets tense, man. Nah, she's your partner. You got to do it together. It's a whole different dynamic. What's really funny is that when you're by yourself, you handle these things, but when you're with a woman, you kind of want her to do it. Is this a dynamic of going back to when you was young again? But no, I don't go like that. But yeah, anyway. But in saying that as well, let's actually have an interesting conversation. Because in saying that, and we understand that, okay, we all get that, yeah? All right. There is also, again, I always say this, but it's true. I was having a conversation with a young lady the other day. She was telling me about a guy that she recently broke up with and why they broke up and what was going on. And she was like, he told me that he loved me, but he's acting really nonchalant about like our relationship and what's going on. And already that doesn't make sense, innit? It's a clash in context. Like, what are you talking about? If someone says that they love you, it means that they want to commit to you. So what's going on? Anywho, so and she's like, I don't believe him because of the way he's acting. So I'm thinking to myself, I don't think she's lying to me, but something doesn't add up. So I said to her, hold on. Did you say I love you back when he said that? And she was like, no. I said to her, look, men find it very hard to be vulnerable, yeah? Especially when it's true. And especially when they might be either not used to, not been in love before, or they don't trust women to be vulnerable with them. So they exercise coldness as a protection thing. It's like a barrier. And he's decided to lower the barrier and be vulnerable, and it feels like you shot him in his heart with an arrow. And you might not realize you're doing that, but that's what you've done. And she was like, nah, it can't be that because this and that. I said to her, you know what? Let me break it down in a way that is actually factually true, okay? Because a lot of girls, for some reason, they don't understand that they don't understand men. There's an arrogance there about that. It's really strange. But we all kind of think exactly the same way. There is no real nuance. And I'm talking generally speaking. We all think the same. Heterosexual men who, heterosexual men generally think the same. And this is an example I'll give. If masculine energy is a mountain, it's a cliff, it's strong, it's steady. That's what masculine energy is, okay? Everything that's rigid, strong, and steady is considered masculine. So a mountain, a brick wall, the earth being a solid object, whatever, land, whatever. And then female energy in the universe is fluid. It flows and ebbs and it moves around with grace and elegance, okay? So the sea would be considered female energy. Wind would be considered female energy. I think you get the drift, yeah? Okay. The strongest physical thing or sturdiest physical thing on the planet, would you agree, is a mountain, okay? The Himalayas, okay? Whatever. And the softest, most pliable thing you would consider would be water. The most malleable thing in the world. You could put your finger in it, swirl it around. You could put it in any kind of holding object. You change how water is shaped. It's very malleable. Okay, cool. But if the sea is knocking against this mountain with the help of wind over the elongated period of time, that is how you get caves and tunnels and stuff like that on the edge sides of mountain or cliff sides. That's how you get it. Okay, it's called attrition, erosion, whatever word you want to use. Now, That's exactly what women do to men over a period of time, emotionally. You will see a very strong man around his wife is like a wounded dog. He's been broken over a period of time. Female energy, I don't want to say female, I'll just say feminine energy is very, very, very powerful. Masculine energy is strong. Female energy is very powerful. You should understand it. I say this to most women that I care about weaponizing it. My grandmother was a master at weaponizing her femininity. She appeared very meek and soft on the outside, but she was a warrior and she understood her place in the marriage and she worked that. It's a very powerful place. You'd be surprised how powerful a deputy is to a captain. It's the point of counsel. Most of the time, the deputy's opinions is what gets put into place because the deputy can see the things that the captain can't see. Anyway, and the only person the captain trusts is the deputy. So, anyway, when I explained that to her, she kind of understood what I'm saying. And unfortunately, most young girls and women are aimlessly bringing attrition to a man's psyche. They don't realize they're doing it. And they then want and require the man to still be the mountain, even though the mountain has been eroded by your feminine energy for a period of time with certain things like this, like opening up and being vulnerable, but then getting shot down. I explained to her the old cliche of a player. Most heartbreakers, they had their heart broken when they were like 6, 7 years old with a little pretty little girl that they loved in school, and she were interested in you, bruv, and she rejected you, and you're just like, I'm never letting that happen to me again. Or vice, like whatever, throughout that time period of school. School is like, if your young years, I'll show you me the boy at 11, I'll show you the man. And everything that you go through up until that time, it kind of shapes the way you see things, especially as a man. So I was trying to explain that to her, that the coldness that he or any of us will demonstrate is a protection. Anyway, I'll give you an example. It doesn't have to be something like that. It could be something very much more serious. Came across this gentleman the other day, and it breaks my heart to talk about this, but I know exactly what he was going through. His name, they called him the Sky King, okay? His name was Richard Russell, aka Bebo. He is a perfect example of what I call the masculine crisis of meaning today in what's going on in the world. The world is, when I say the world, that's a lie. The Western world is swinging very much in the feminine direction. And though some people may call it progressive, I see it as quite dangerous for many reasons. We've never seen at any period of time through any civilization a female-heavy, successfully run empire. We haven't seen that. It's not saying that women don't have leadership qualities, it's that we have not seen that. So because you haven't seen it, there's a big mystery about the success of it, okay, in the long run. Now, we're not talking about spells. We're not talking about Margaret Thatcher. We're not talking about Theresa May. Do you know what I mean? We're not talking about Miss Angela Merkel. I was under her leadership while living in Germany for 2 years, or for however long I was there. Having a female prime minister, there's nothing wrong with that. But we're not talking about having a figurehead in one position. We're talking about actually a society operating off of feminine principles rather than off masculine principles. Now, there is a reason why we are created in the way that we're created. Everybody has a role to play, including the bees, the birds and the bees. But I mean the bees, literally the bees. Without bees, about bees and insects, especially bees, we will cease to exist. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google what would happen if all the bees die. Okay, and we would be in some serious trouble. But anyway, I digress. I'm saying this all to say that when the society goes in a way where it's female-led completely, it's feminine principles we're going off, we're using too much of the ethos and pathos and not enough of logos. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google what I'm saying. The difference between pathos, ethos and logos. I always say to Google it because I want my double speak members to be the kings of Google, kings and queens of Google, where you don't take what I'm saying for face value or fact. You look up what I'm saying, because then you will do it with others when people are saying things. So even if you have to pause the podcast or whatever, just look it up and really learn something. Anyway, now what I'm saying is, you can erode, if by eroding masculinity, you have a massive problem in your society, massive problem. In your home, massive problem. Men are built to lead and create. A lot of us have negated this responsibility and have paved way for the female to do that. And she doesn't want to do it. She doesn't like it. She has to do it. Women that operate like that, they're not happy. They're not living in their true essence. A man living with that rate of responsibility of trying to be a go-getter, being strong, being dominant, we love that. We get a kick out of that. Being not agreeable, like it's in us that we're our happiest, generally speaking, when we are either creating something, focusing intensely on something, or find that we can make a name for ourselves from doing something. That is where we are at our most happiest. Generally speaking, that's not when women are at their most happiest. Women feel like they have to do that in order to provide the life that they want to have. And that's what I mean. Now, when the roles are reversed, yeah, this is what you realize. Even when a man is a bum, yeah, he will be sick at something. Like, he will be amazing at something. Like, even if he's not doing nothing, you open up his PlayStation and see what he's achieved on there. You'd be like, blum, bumbleclaw, bro. This guy is bare sick at Modern Warcraft or whatever these games that people play, Call of Duty or you'd be like, rah. Yeah, because we're built to have intense focus, intense levels of focus on something. He will be signed on to job seekers, but be a chess champion. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's mad. But it just comes naturally to us to want to intensely focus on things for elongated periods of time. What we're talking about here is how the suicide rate for males has gone up. But men are not dealing with it well, because though women have helped, by women entering into the workplace, into society more, it has civilized us a lot more as men, as in to say, I personally believe that women civilize men. By women not being only in the home and not only calling shots in the home about certain etiquette and principles, but being in the workplace, it means that a lot of barbaric behavior that was existed over the time span, it's been kind of flushed out. And there is a good and there's a bad to it, but we acknowledge the good for the sake of this conversation. Or should I say for the sake of this point, there is a benefit to it. But the negative is a lot of men cannot handle not having meaning in their life and not being the captain of their ship and not leading their ship and not making names for themselves. You will see a lot more serial killers. You will see a lot more mass shooters, because that's a quick and easy way to make your name mean something. Now, for those that are thinking what I'm saying is deranged and crazy, look up what I'm saying. The increase in this, there is a reason why in certain communities, there's a lot more killers in the community. There's a lot more killings happening because it's quicker to get, even like, okay, let me be very clear. I'm going to be less vague. In gang culture is kind of taking over the whole bloody Western world as well in regards to art and in the reality of it. There's a lot more people that are in gangs, a lot more gangs forming. There's a lot more killers. I used to respect the drug dealer more than the killer. The killer was a tool, a necessary tool for a last resort kind of situation. Now, the killer's the cool guy, and I find that strange because anybody can do that. Anybody can't run a business. As a drug dealer, you're self-employed until it grows enough and you start employing people, okay? That's not for everybody. You have to be a hustler to do that. You have to learn certain skills that you can take into anywhere, by the way. As a killer, you have to just pick up a weapon and handle your business and stand on that. Okay, fine. In doing that though, which is easy, if that person becomes respected and cool, then the barrier of entry for respect is low. Now, we just spoke about how men need to have a name and find meaning in their life, or they lose a sense of self. So in hurting others, it's the quickest way to do that. If I just pick up a knife and stab any random person, they don't have to even do anything to me. They could just, whatever the person I'm going to get stripes off of, why wouldn't I do that? It's way harder to build something than it is to go across the street and handle that and then come back and laugh, you know? It doesn't matter about the pain that I feel when no one's around and I'm crying, I'm having nightmares and that person's ghost is haunting me in my cell. That's not acknowledged at that point. That stuff you worry about later. What you want immediately is the gratification, the likes. You know, that's it's the same addiction. It's the same dopamine addiction. Anyway, this guy that we're talking, bringing up, the Sky King. This is audio from his last moments. Now, I know that I wouldn't want to hear that, but there's a reason why I'm playing it, and it's not to scare anybody or for any shock jock reason. This gentleman, Richard Bebo, was a very intelligent young man, a very creative young man. He got into a relationship with somebody and she was more educated than him. She went to culinary school and she went to start a bakery. He helped her. They started a bakery together. He would come up with the ideas, the creative ideas of what they should bake and handle certain paperwork, and she would run the bakery and she would bake and blah, 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 blah. Never worked out. So she wanted to move back with her family in a different part of the country. In America, it's New York, by the way. I think it was Seattle where her family were from, and they were in like California or something like that. And they moved back and he had to go and get a regular job. Now, like everybody that would work, and the regular job was working in the airport, carrying bags, okay? You know, the carrying a bag from point A to point B, your travel luggage and stuff. I can't remember what the position is for that. Anyway, he did that, and anyone that worked with him said that he was a pleasant guy, he was a lovely guy, and he was very well educated, and whenever they caught him, he's always had his head in books, okay? He was always reading something. He tried to go for a promotion at his job. Now, bear in mind, he moved to this part of the country for his girl. She wanted to be close to her family. He did that. So that's a prime example of her steering the ship, okay? So anyway, he did that. He got a regular job, didn't get the promotion for whatever reason. And he was stuck in his job for years and years and years and years and years. He would play, he would get in trouble, by the way, for being in the cockpit of planes. And he'd always be asking the pilots questions and stuff like that. And the pilots liked him, but obviously it was against whatever rules. He couldn't do that. His job was to carry bags, not talk to pilots, you know what I mean? And they would get quite irritated. He actually got disciplined a few times, I believe, for doing that. He got really addicted to playing simulations of flying planes and stuff, and he got really good at the game or whatever, and he was told to talk about it. Anyway, cut a long story short, one day he decided to hijack a plane. And in hijacking the plane, it's been stated and recorded on record by many pilots that he was able to perform tricks with this plane that seasoned professionals couldn't do. It turns out those conversations he was having with the pilots, he was asking them questions about how certain things worked. He was reading books upon how to fly a plane, and he was doing the simulations. So when he hijacked this plane, he knew exactly what he was doing. He was better than experienced pilots. And we're talking about over 10 years experience. I'm not talking about no novice. But he was doing tricks like it was a skateboard. He was doing twirls and other kind of crazy stuff by himself. He never had anyone on board. And in him doing that, obviously the airports and the local towers that were in contact with him through radio were telling him to land the plane, stop, land the plane. What you're doing is very dangerous. Their fear was that he couldn't fly it. He was just some bag handler. The reality is he was a master flyer. He put in his hours because his ambition that was at the bakery hadn't gone anywhere. Maybe with his girlfriend who felt like, you know what, this ain't working out, mummy and daddy will look after me. Maybe not for her, but for him as a man, he had to put that ambition somewhere. And this dead-end job and living with his girl's parents and under their ruling was eroding his masculinity. I had a very similar kind of situation where I was living in a life where I was vulnerable, should I say, to that of the dictatorship of my ex-partner's parents in a way. And it, because of being in her environment, and it wasn't necessarily her place, but her environment, meaning like in her country, it was another country, it wasn't Britain. I was susceptible to her listening to her parents over me. And if you're going to have a successful marriage and you're going to build something together, that can't happen because again, it erodes your masculinity, and it can actually make some people quite violent because of that. Whenever a man feels like his masculinity is being challenged, there is a run, fight, flight response. Okay. And it did make me more aggressive. It made me be more, not controlling, but it did make me I had little patience for things like to do with her and this vision, because I was being undermined in my own home, and I could see where it was going if I allowed them in anymore. If I conformed to any of what they were saying, and they don't even live, it's not like we're in their house or we're in our own place, but they're able to call shots. Once she opens that door, I'm telling you, you are no longer the man in the house, period. Because it can get really bad. A lot of men my brother worked in a prison, so I'm not talking out my ass. A lot of men that have killed their wives, it comes down to their masculinity being challenged. And that's something that women don't understand, how dangerous that is. You should never do that. The moment, stay in your femininity, because the moment you cross that line, he's no longer looking at you as a woman, he's looking at you as a man. And we live in a time where women kind of want that without understanding the consequences of that. It's not a good thing. The mentality of the protector goes out the window, because now you want to be my equal and I have to remind you you're not. And I'm not saying that's the right way of dealing with things, because it's not, it's terrible, but it is, you play with danger when you start doing that. And I suppose a lot of these suicides that we find with men specifically, the numbers of male to female suicides is exponentially different. Like, it's not even close. I think the number is like 90% of it are married men or men in long-term relationships. It's quite sad. And anyway, so this is the backstory of this the Sky King, aka Bebo. And I'm going to find what he had to say, because I'm not going to quote him, because I feel like it's important to hear what he had to say before by the way, he didn't land the plane when they asked him to land the plane. He apologized for his behavior, but he made it abundantly clear that he was never planning on landing the plane. This was his last rodeo.
With everyone allowing your clear to commensurate with the track and advise when the...
I got a lot of people that care about me, and it's going to disappoint them that I did this. I would like to apologize to every one of them. Just that broken guy, got a few screws loose again. Never really do it. You know, now.
Enter flight 141, turn left, heading 190, follow the Dash 8 visual approach runway 1.
You feel like that could be, what do you think, like 5,000 feet at least to be able to pull this parallel line?
Stay on the ground.
I'm not going to go any further with that, because it gets quite morbid. But he was clear about being broken and being apologetic to people that love him, and saying he had a few screws loose. He never realised it till now. But when I looked into his backstory, it's very clear why. And it is the degradation of masculinity, the loss of meaning. They're in the audio, if you would care to Google it and listen to it for yourself on YouTube. He talks about if he could get a job as a pilot, if he landed it professionally. And the controller said to him, yeah, we'll give you anything if you just land the plane. And he was like, yeah, right. And it became, in the interviews later, the controller said, and the other pilot said, it became quite clear that he had no intentions of landing the plane. And he was done. But he proved something to himself, that he could do something at a high level before he goes, because he was so broken by the situation that he was in. And his name will live forever because of it. And that is the desire of many, many, many men. And many men do egregious things in the pursuit of being seen. Anyway, there's a book called The Invisible Man. And it's actually about being black in America. It's not actually about what I'm talking about, but there are principles about it that are very, very, very similar to what I'm talking about as well, of being seen, but not seen as an individual, but being seen as your race is what the book is about. In this instant, it's being seen and not seen as a man and the value that you bring regardless of what you can bring, people don't care anymore because people are not looking for you to step up and bring that. And for people who are going along with the zeitgeist, this is breaking them. It's empowering one and then breaking the other. And I always, always, always preach, you do not have to tear someone else down to big yourself up. But it happens all the time. Anyway, let's switch gears because it's actually getting quite sad and morbid. And there's still a lot to cover that I want to get through. But there's no rush. There's no rush, is there? There's a book called The Power of Now by Eric Toller, I believe it is. Phenomenal book. It definitely inspires those who want to be present and in now, like in the presence of now. And meditation definitely helps with that. It goes back to what I was talking about before, kind of making decisions, making the right decisions, using discernment to make decisions. Power of Now is very important. So yeah, check that book out. Tell me what you think. Say in the moment. There's different dimensions that we occupy, and it's like, what? No, we don't. Yeah, we do. Obviously, everyone's aware of the first dimension being a single point, second dimension being a flat surface, 2D, 3D, and that's what we operate in. 3D. Ants kind of operate in 2D. No, them kind of they do. They don't live in the third dimension. The fourth dimension would be spiritual, and I think that's where I want to go with this, because the power of now, I think, is a spiritual enlightenment. The power of now is understanding that you're existing outside of time, past, present, or future. You're communicating with the real time and space, which is outside of just our solar system, because our time is dictated by the sun. Correct? Okay. So if you're outside of our solar system, meaning there's the sun that we kind of are dependent on for time is non-existent, then time ceases to exist, and your brain can do that. You could remember things from in the past. That's not in the right now. That's not 2D. That's not 3D. Sorry. If you think vividly about something that happened in the past, that's outside of now, which is outside of the third dimension. If you're thinking about the future, you're outside of the third dimension. Okay. And channeling what's in the fourth dimension is very important. There are forces at hand that are in the fifth dimension and fourth dimension that affect the third dimension, just like how we affect ants, let's say. They're not aware of it, but we do, okay? And these forces that operate in the fourth and fifth are there. They're very real, and we feel it. We feel their energy from time to time, but we don't know what it is. They try to communicate with us in different ways, good or bad, whatever you want to call it. But we know that. We may refuse to acknowledge it, but it's there. So I want to use a quote from Seneca. They lose the day in expectation of the night and lose the night in fear of the dawn. So you're not living in the now, is what we're talking about. We're not present in the now. And that affects your patience. It builds frustration, it builds depression, and it definitely fuels anxiety. They say if you're looking in the past, it brings depression. If you're looking in the future, it brings anxiety. The power of now is very, 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 very important. Now, I said to the audience, have you ever been down in the same place for so long you wish you lived another life? These kind of thoughts are paralyzing. Can I relate? Of course. And I love me. I love my life. My life is amazing. But it doesn't mean you don't feel these feelings. And it leads to frustrating thoughts of wishing you were someone else or wishing you lived another life can actually keep you there. They're not always as motivating as they might sound. And it prevents action towards things that you want. The cause of that is comparing yourself to others. And I always say to my little sister whenever we talk about this, whenever she says about even going to an interview or doing anything, and she'd been like someone feeling intimidated by the people that are there. And I used to feel like females play football and stuff, like, oh boy, these guys look a bit sick. That, comparing yourself to others, is the quickest way to self-destruction, because you have no idea. You're looking at something through your lens, not actually the reality. And your lens is coming from a place of insecurity, which, by the way, everybody has. Everybody has insecurities, and everybody's operating off of those insecurities. For people that are working in a 9 to 5, your manager, You think your manager, that your job is to please your manager. And in you seeing it like that and you thinking like that, you're negating the fact that your manager is even more insecure about their position than you are, because they have to worry about if you like them, if you respect them, if they're doing everything in their power to get the best out of you to please their manager, if they deserve this responsibility. The higher you go up in management, yes, is the less you do, but it's the more fragile your position is because of the weight of responsibility. So there's a lot of things they're juggling when dealing with you. So you have to manage those expectations and those insecurities even when you're a subordinate, because you can trigger someone's insecurities. And some people, they overreact. They become very spiteful or aggressive when their insecurities are triggered, Just food for thought. I said to my sister recently, there's no point, and I said it to actors as well, there's no point being upset about not getting a part or or even getting a job or whatever from an interview or casting call, because the director already knows what they're looking for before you walk in the room. Sometimes based off your show rule, or they already know who they want. But when you walk in the room, it's just to confirm that you are the character, not that you're the best actor. That's not what a calling cast is for. It's not to find the best actors in the world. It's to find who is the character. When I read this character, who did I see in my head? Who did I understand from the essence of them? When I wrote this character, who was I thinking about? So when that individual walks in the room, it's the most magical thing for a director. It's like, it's you. And even if you're not the best actor, it doesn't matter. You are the person naturally. Your mannerisms, the way you talk, the way you smile, it's exactly who I was thinking of, So because you're not in control of that, obviously, even if someone likes you, you can say something that makes you put them off, and vice versa. Someone doesn't like you, you can say something that changes their mind. I've been in situations before in my working life where I never got the job from the interviewer. It was their manager that liked me and was like, hire him. It's happened to me a few times where the person actually, and vice versa, where the manager, where the interviewer wanted me and the manager didn't. That's happened to me as well, because it's not actually in anyone else's control but God's. Whatever's been panned out for you is panned out for you. You could turn up in your boxes, you'll still get it. I got a job in a bank one time, one of my in my teens. I'm not qualified. I got kicked out of school. I didn't have no GCSEs. I got a job in the bank. I'm not going into it all now, but I've ruined my leg, and I had a massive cast on my foot and on my whole leg to my ankle, obviously. And I still went to the interview with a suit, crutches, with cast on my foot. The area manager did not want me. But this manager saw that I had made such an effort and was like, you're the kind of person I want working for me. Because I know rain, sleet, sun, snow, whatever, sick or not sick, you're going to come in and you're going to do your job to the best of your ability, because that's your character. You're a warrior. And I looked at him, and at that point, I wasn't completely sure that I was this person, but he could see it in that moment. Okay? Now you could say, yeah, but you did that because you did that. Yeah, but if it was down to his boss, I wouldn't have the job. If I caught a different manager who didn't really care about all that because I wasn't the guy. Do you know what I mean? It could have been someone who was racist. It could have been someone who wanted a woman. It could have been someone who just wasn't impressed by that. Not everyone's going to be impressed by that. Only a certain type of individual is going to be impressed. Everything lined up perfectly for that to happen. My point is, you are amazing. I always go back to this. You are amazing, and you'll be surprised how amazing you are if you're not comparing yourself to others, because they've got a whole different destiny. They've got a whole different line, a linear journey, a whole different narrative that they're going on for their life. So you should worry about you. And I know you know this, but sometimes you have to be reminded. And how I look at it, actually, I'm coming to it, because I wrote down infinite versus finite. It's an analogy and an idea of the infinite player versus the finite player, and changing the perspective from one to the other. Examples of playing to win quick versus playing to build and exist in the space. Okay, the Vietnam War versus USA. Okay, is another great example. The Viet Cong Their goal was to exist in the space. They wanted to live. They were fighting to live. America were fighting to win. That war will go on for way longer than you anticipated because they're playing long game and you're playing the short game. Good luck in winning that war. They're playing to exist. So there's always going to be another Viet Cong soldier. No matter how much you kill, there'll always be another one because they're not going to yield to you. And therefore, you're going to have a lot of people die seemingly for no reason. Long game versus short game thinking. Your daily habits determine who you are. It's not about a burst of motivation. It's not about suddenly hitting a lick. It's about doing the same thing repetitively over and over again and keeping the same enthusiasm you had at the beginning at the end. I don't say at the end, but you know what I mean, later on. You underdig, building to compete with yourself, carving out your own lane, thinking 50 years, not 5, okay? Like when I started this podcast, the Double Speak podcast, I started off thinking about 100 episodes. Like I had to think 100 episodes. Most of these magazine or website lists and award shows can be bought, yeah? Like as in like payola, being lobbied, like even down to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It's a campaign to get yourself on that. Nothing is like as honest as you think and above board as you think it is, the way that it's presented, should I say. So why care about what the ranking is and what the number is or what number you are? Build your thing that you are building and focus on your own goals. That's the whole point of why I'm saying all of this. There's a great quote from Alan Watts, a phenomenal philosopher. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. Don't do it. It's not going to work. You're only hurting yourself. Just try being. On that note, I love you. Double Speak members, you are the shit. Don't feel sorry for me. Support me. Love me how I love you. Don't judge me because I don't judge you. I just try to help. So try and help me. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Double Speak podcast.